Doesn't sound like the ocean. It sounds more like the Yankees' bats whiffing. No, it really sounds like you're under a highway and like the trucks are overhead. That's what it sounds like. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, the Yankees have gone historically bad for the first time in 28 years, losing 8 games in a row, which included back-to-back sweeps by not only the Atlanta Braves on the road, but at the worst of the worst, the Boston Red Sox at home. You can't do that. So obviously fans are very upset right now, not only at Hal Steiner, but Brian Cashman. And I'll kind of give you a hint of a fire Cashman night, which is coming around the corner, as well as some of this stuff that's been going on behind the scenes between Boone and the front office. Obviously, everyone's frustrated. Of course, the fans are. And of course, the Yankees pretty much have written off any opportunity to get into the postseason now, sliding about 10 games out of that final wild card spot. So the reality is really starting to hit that it's going to be no postseason for the Yankees, and not even no postseason. They might not even hit 500 for the first time in almost 30 years. So you're looking at a historic bad Yankee season on our hands here. So we'll get into all that different stuff. Again, the behind-the-scenes drama. There's some panic moves the Yankees starting to make, starting to listen to the fans and bring up some of the young kids from the minors there. Might be too little too late, but nevertheless, they're doing that. We'll let you know what moves are being made. And since, again, the Yankees are in danger of not being a 500 team for the first time since 1992, I figured I'd have a little fun just to lighten things up. We'll actually compare that 1992 team to this 2023 team and just some of the stats of the pitching and hitting. Now, it's not totally fair because the season's not over yet, but kind of interesting to see, this terrible 92 team, how it stacks up against this team, which is not doing that much better. And of course, something we introduced this season, which got some good feedback on, is reading fan tweets. So we'll look at the final game. It was the final game against Boston that completed that sweep, where the Yankee Twitter account announced that they lost 6-5, and again, we'll read some of the fan reactions to that, and I'll react to their reactions just to just give my take on there, and of course a lot of anger as you could expect. So get into a lot of stuff here, so it's going to be a really good episode. But before we start, make sure you subscribe to the audio version podcast of the show. So wherever you get your favorite podcasts, look up Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, subscribe, get cool stuff you can't see here anywhere else or on TV like that. So you got to be a podcast subscriber, get a little Yankee history, get a little side story. You got to be a podcast subscriber to get that. So get that. And of course, if you're watching this here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe there as well. Hit the bell and get notified when new episodes come up. So the Yankees had that disastrous road trip, which was losing 2 out of 3 against the Chicago White Sox, losing 2 out of 3 to the Miami Marlins, and of course getting swept by the Atlanta Braves. But you figure, come home, facing the Boston Red Sox, you figure maybe it's something let's kick in. Hey, look, we had a terrible road season. We're home. Let's just at least, get some wins here. Looks like the season's lost, but nevertheless, get swept for a second series in a row against the Red Sox, and that really pretty much wrote off, the Yankee season. I know they're all saying the right things. Boone met with team during the Boston series, like, well, we talked to the guys in the clubhouse, but I don't feel like they've given up. And I still think, that we're about to turn this thing around, which doesn't seem like it's happening. And even Judge is saying the right thing, as captain, like, hey, look, we haven't had a hot streak all season long, which is true. But so we're kind of due, and it's going to happen in September. I just don't see that. I mean, I've mentioned this a lot on the podcast. You just look at the lineup there. I just don't think they have the guys, the capability, the firepower to go on a hot streak. I mean, when you got a situation when you're batting Jake Bauers third in the lineup, I mean, someone third in the lineup, you're thinking about like Mark Teixeira in his prime. You're thinking about A-Rod. You're thinking about Don Mattingly. You're not thinking about Jake Bauers. So I just don't think they have enough firepower to even go on a streak if they want to. And of course, they're all going to say the right things. But nevertheless, that pretty much, and losing 8 games in a row like that, something the Yankees haven't done since 1995. So you're looking at a 28-year historically bad stretch for the New York Yankees there. And a lot of it just, it gets to a point where sometimes you're just a bad team, you're a bad team. But, not only is the offense struggling, but, we saw Cole get beat up at home against Boston. And if that's happening, it's just like, you just know it's just not in the cards. And, of course, that final game, we kind of discussed in the previous podcast episode when I had a couple of guests on. It's just a brutal loss of, blowing in a 7-3 lead in the 9th inning, giving up 8 runs like that. It's just when you have these things happening, like, it's just not your year. So a lot of bad stuff right now. Now, also during the Boston series, supposedly Boone met with both Brian Cashman and Hal behind closed doors, and he described it as the front office is very frustrated. Well, okay, but the front office really didn't do anything at the trade deadline. So They kind of this is the team they rolled the dice on. They were maybe hoping just to catch, get the fact that Judge was back and they were going to get Nestor Cortez back, and finally got Rendon out there on the field. That maybe things were going to finally click in. I mean, that's what they rolled the dice with. That's why they didn't make any major moves other than picking up a couple of small pitchers there, which only one of them is actually being used by the Yankees. But that whole thing just blew up in their face, and of course we know now with Nestor re-injured that same rotator cuff, and he's pretty much done for the rest of the season. And again, this lineup just hasn't woken up, pretty much stays slumbering. I mean, you've seen Stanton, go under 200 again, get booed by the Yankees crowd, and it just looks like, I don't know. I mean, he runs into a home run once in a while, but he just looks completely lifeless out there. So I just don't think the Yankees have enough firepower to even get back in there. And as kind of mentioned before, the Yankees kind of slipped out just about 10 games out of that final wild card spot. Now they're looking up teams like, above them, like the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, who actually made some moves at the trade deadline and decided to keep Ohtani. They actually went for it. The Yankees just kind of laid back, didn't really pull out so many big moves, and I don't know what big moves made it out there for the Yankees had, but they could have maybe added a bat or two or something like that. But they didn't. They stand pack, and it looks like the gamble didn't pay off. And it looks like, you look at the first time, since 2016, they're not going to pick the postseason. And I'm not even sure if this team's going to hit 500 right now. Even at some of the Yankees had some bad seasons, in the past, they even finished a respectable 85 wins at least. I mean, okay. I mean, this team, I don't know if they got 60, I don't know if they could win 16 more games to at least get about 80. I mean, I don't know. So you might have a team that since 1992 hasn't, reached, it's going to be under 500 there. So the Yankees are in danger there. Now, they finally, after the fans been clamoring to bring up some of the young guys, the Yankees finally do that. So they get called up as well, Peraza as well as Emerson Pereira. Now, the fans have been calling for them all season. I don't know, it might be a little too late now. Pereira is an outfielder there, and obviously we've been seeing the Yankees get a lack of production from the outfield. Beta's actually dropped down really in his production, which is kind of surprising there. Got nothing from left field. And Aaron Judge, of course, he's only out in the right field once in a while, still battling that hurt toe. So they don't put him out there that much. So you really get no power from the outfield. So let's see if Pereira could do something with that. And as well as Peraza. He's had 23 home runs total, from AA, actually playing for the Rail Riders and AAA there, sorry. So, he does have some power. But the times that Peraza was here, man, he really didn't do that much. So I don't know what fans are really expecting. But I guess, it's better to have him in there than, say, someone like, just like IKF or DJ or something like that. Maybe they breathe a little life in this team. It could be a little bit of youth movement. Maybe it helps. Who knows, like that. And we saw this with the Yankees back in 2016 when they started packaging players away and they brought up the baby bombers. That was Gary Sanchez. That was Judge. They come on the scene. They gave the team a little bit boost. I'm not saying Peraza and Pereira could do that, but maybe it's just better that some of these guys they have in there now, such as like Billy McKinney and Jake Bowers and Greg Allen, who are just like, at best, role players. I mean, they should not be in the starting lineup, but but right now it's just I just think maybe they're finally throwing fans a bone because they've been clamoring for these people, and of course now fans actually really you're hearing all whispers of start to sell the team and fire Brian Cashman and all of that, and I'll kind of get at that a little later in the episode. But just a lot of anger right now on the Yankees, who again just seem very lethargic. This is the way they got blown out. The first two games at home against Boston, I mean, you just got swept by the Braves. You think you put up a fight in those first two games? They lost both games by a score of combined of 16-4 there. So not good days, not a good time for Yankee fans there. And and again, it's going to be a really crazy off season. Just to decide what Hal is going to do with Brian Cashman because he still has 3 years left on that deal. So I don't know, a lot of craziness in Yankee land right now. A lot of not good stuff. A lot of historically bad stuff. I mentioned at the top that since the Yankees are in danger for the first time in 30 years of falling under 500. You have to go back to the 1992 Yankees when they were 76 and 86, and that's when Buck Showalter, I believe, was the first, second year as manager. Right before the Yankees kind of turned around 93, they made the trade, to bring in Paul O'Neill. They also made the trade with Boston to bring in Wade Boggs, and of course Bernie Williams started to develop, and they started to put some things together as well as sign Jimmy Key as a free agent. And that's when the Yankees were at least able to turn things around a little bit. But that 92 team was probably the last of the bad Yankees team, which is kind of throughout the late 80s and early 90s here now. So I figured, just as a little fun to kind of compare that team with some of the stats as this current Yankee team in 2023. Now, it's a little skewed because obviously there's still a chunk of baseball left of this season. You got about a week or two of August and then all September. So obviously you can't totally, if the 2023 team falls a little bit short there, I mean, it's just because they're short of a month. But it just kind of goes to show, you have a team that finished 10 games on the 500, 30 years ago, compared to this team, just kind of, are they on the same path? And it kind of goes to show of just what's a good team, what's a bad team. Figure this, we'll bring out a little stats here. So we've got the very technical, high tech of the posted here notes here. So let's look at some key stats. Very keep it bland, not to go too crazy. But first we'll go with, on the hitting side, batting average. So the 1992 team, again, the average, the batting average towards the end of the year was 261. You compare this team right now in 2023, it's 230. So that team 30 years ago was hitting 31 points better than this current team, and that's a team that finished 10 games on the 500. Again, different game, but nonetheless. Number of hits. The team from 1982 had 1,462 hits. This current team right now has 933. So that team, again, there's another whole month to go, but that team hit 500 more hits than this current team right now. And just the way these batters are with this Yankee team, and you think they have 500 hits to them in September? Maybe, I don't know. Look at home runs. Now, bat on par here. Now, that team in 92 hit 163. This current 2023 team right now, as I say this, has 168. So about equal footing home run-wise, and you have a whole month left of the season, so obviously the 23 team is going to kind of blow that out a little bit. But this kind of goes to show with this 2023, most of their offense, a good chunk of it, and pretty much half of it is based on the home run. The 92 team at least did other things, other than just home runs. Look at total runs. 92 had 733 versus right now they're at 523. So the 92 team right now is 200 runs ahead. Now you think this current Yankee team is going to score 200 runs in September? I don't think so. And let's finally look at RBIs. The 92 team had 703, and right now this current 23 Yankee team has 503. So the 92 team had 200 more RBIs than this current team has. You think this current team is going to hit 200 RBIs in September, a little chunk of August? Doesn't seem like it. So you look at offensively, a bad Yankee team from 92, in some way you might say is offensively better than this current Yankee team right now, and that's kind of scary. Now we'll go on the pitching edge, which I don't get too much. I mean, the Yankee pitching this season really hasn't been the problem. It's been the offense, but figure fun, well, why not? Let's go after it. So the ERA back in 92, the team, 421. This current Yankee team, 411. So this current Yankee team is just about 10 points better right now in ERA, but kind of equal footing, and it's kind of a little scary. I mean, you figure a team that's headed for the playoffs will have a little better ERA than that, so this kind of goes to show that team's probably not headed for the postseason. Walks, the 92 team had a chunk more at 612 versus this current team has 408. So I think this current 2023 Yankee team is not going to get surrounded 200 walks next season, so I think they got the edge on that one. We'll go to saves. In 92, they had 44 team total. This current Yankee team right now had 32. Now, the 92 Yankee team might actually beat that, because I don't know if this team has 12 saves in it, left, remainder of August and September there. If, they're going to be ahead in that many games and be able to save that game, so they actually might lose that, which is kind of pitiful. I think back then Steve Farr was the closer, and of course maybe some others pitched in when we had an off day. And the last but not least, the average age of each team. And of course, you always want to be as young as possible. You have a veteran too, but age determines it a lot, and you have a lot of, you want a lot of youth and you want a lot of athleticism. So let's look back at 92. Were they old? Were they young? Let's see. The average age of the team was 28.3. This current Yankee team right now, which kind of seems young, is 29.1. So this current Yankee team in 23 is actually on average a year older than that 92 team. And that was that 92 team included like Don Mattingly, Matt Noakes, Charlie Hayes, Andy Stankiewicz, Melito Perez. So it seemed like those were the old guys, but actually they were a year younger than this current Yankee team, which is, again, has some age to it. Not too old, but on average 1 year older. So a lot of blemishes there. So yeah, you want to compare a championship team. You want to compare a team that's headed for under 500. This team is resembling more to that team from 92 that's under 500. And you can make the case that 92 team was actually a better hitting team overall than these current Yankees. So a lot of scary stuff. And we still have the angry fan tweets towards the end of this episode, so make sure you hang on for that. Now, I was reading through a recent article from Carrie Goodman of the New York Daily News, kind of put an opinion piece out there that Hal Steinbrenner should just sell the team. Like, all right, let's just calm down with all this stuff. And now you're going to see some of those rants, and you just got to pull yourself back for a minute there. Remember as a Yankee fan, usually when you make the playoffs every season, you just kind of see the Met fans go off the deep end about, the willpower should sell a team, and always wanting, the Jets own to sell a team. Always sell a team. Like, you want to take a step back. Don't be the crazy fan a little bit. Like, there's just no way in hell that Steinbrenner is going to sell a team. And even though people are going to be screaming for it, you're just wasting your breath. Not knowing that I think he should sell a team. Look, he's not let's just put it this way, he's not into it as much probably as George was, the day-to-day operations, being on top of it. I mean, George was kind of, maybe to a fault, kind of involved a lot of, he was almost a GM even though he was the owner. I think Hal defers a lot to Cashman. He trusts Cashman a lot, and I think Hal's is a little bit stays to the side of it and lets Cashman do his thing. I think if it's a big decision, sort of like if he has to step in like he did with Aaron Judge, make that call, that last final call, pitch to get Judge, I think that's when Hal will step in. But other than that, he's just probably not as locked in as George Steinbrenner was. But does that mean he's a terrible owner? No. But he's just not keyed in the situation as much. And again, sometimes that hurts, sometimes that helps. Obviously a lot of people have mixed feelings when, like, for example, the Dallas Cowboys, when Jerry Jones is down there on the field, it's like, well, maybe it's not good with the players. Some people have mixed feelings of that. Hal is just not George. He's in the background a little bit, but doesn't mean he's a terrible owner. He's clueless. He just probably defers a lot to Brian Cashman. And if Cashman says, look, XYZ, whatever, and Hal pretty much goes along with it. Now, what we saw the difference of this season, it looks like that Cashman kind of wanted to, trade some pieces off like he did in 2016, and it was Hal that actually wanted to keep the team standing packed. So I guess Hal in that situation overruled Cashman. I guess one of the rare times we've seen them kind of butt heads a little bit. But other than that, I don't think Hal is a terrible owner, and I don't think he's going to sell the team anytime soon. So to scream that is just like yelling at the wall. Again, don't be like the crazy Met fan who used to do that after every season. It's just not going to happen. And look, I know the season hasn't really gone the way you wanted to, but when they want to, Hal does put up the money. I mean, he put up the $300+ million to get Garrett Cole in here. He put the $360 up to get Aaron Judge back up here. He even put the additional money to get Carlos Rendon here. Now, that's turned out to be a complete disaster in the neighborhood of a Jacoby Ellsbury or Pavano. I don't want to go there just yet, but he at least put up the $162 million to do that. So to say he's kind of been a cheap owner, hasn't been gone the extra mile, I don't think that's been the case. And I know people wanted Carlos Correa to start the season there. I think if Carlos Correa is on this team right now, I just don't think they'd be that much better. So he could, if you look at his batting average, it's not that, in the low 200s as well. Okay, he bops you a home run today. He has a little flair to them. I give you that. But I don't think this team would have been infinitely better if they also just splurged as well as Carlos Correa on the season before when the big shortstop free agents out there. So Steinbrenner, okay, he's not George, fine. It might be to a fault, maybe. Maybe he needs to be a little bit more like George, a little bit more like Hank Steinbrenner, which is kind of handle the team, maybe he'll change a little bit like that. But there's no way he's going to sell the team. No, sure, I think he's to sell the team. And if you want to be, Yankee fans, look back. You got 5 seasons for the past 30 years they haven't made the postseason. Because they got 94, you got 2008. You got the back-to-back years of 2013 and 2014, and of course 2016. So you look back 30 years, only 5 of those seasons they didn't make the playoffs. That's pretty damn good as an organization. Now, and if you want to look back that Hal can't win a championship, George is kind of out of the loop pretty much. After the early 2000s, he kind of took a bigger step back from the team, and of course started to age a little bit, and he kind of handed the reins over to Hal and Hank. So hey, look, they went through this situation where they kind of bridged themselves away from Joe Torre. During that final meeting there with Torre, Steinbrenner was in the room, but he pretty much, as Torre said in his book, was pretty much mute. He was pretty much Hank and Hal doing the talking during that meeting there. So, they took over the reins since 07. 08 didn't go well, but unfortunately 09, they were the ones that kind of put up the money, and they helped put that 2009 Yankee team together, which won a World Series. And of course, 2010, they should have repeated there. Now, that was the whole situation where the Yankees couldn't get Cliff Lee from Seattle. Cliff Lee ended up going to Texas. And of course, Texas and Cliff Lee would bounce the Yankees from the playoffs, go to the World Series and lose to the Giants. But if the Yankees could have maybe thrown in Ivan Nova into that deal, they probably get Cliff Lee, and that 2010 Yankee team probably definitely repeats. They were just as good as the 2009 team. So I'm not going to say that automatically makes them championship, but you have 09 and 10 there. So that was put together by Hal and Hank Steinbrenner. So to say that Hal Steinbrenner can't be at the helm of a winning team, that's just not true. He can do it. Now, since then, it's been bad, and you don't know if that's a Hal fault, is that a Cashman fault? You can throw the blame around, but Hal Steinbrenner could be the owner of a championship team. Now, if you want to mark your calendars for Friday, September 22nd, there's going to be an organized Fire Brian Cashman night at Yankee Stadium. Now, I mentioned the Daily News before, so let me give some love to the New York Post as to be things even. They ran an article, I guess a Yankee gets one of the bleacher creatures, John from Maspeth, so if he's on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, you can go up. The Post actually gives his full name and last name, which I don't want to mention here, as a private citizen, but nevertheless, if you want to check out the article, it gives a name, look it up. So basically, if you want to mark calendar, it's against the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's a Friday, 7:30 game, and I guess in there in the right field bleachers, sections 202 for 204, I guess that's where they have like the Steinbrenner Memorial. They're encouraging fans to show up and have a brown paper bag on your head, have Fire Cashman signs. So you really see, you hear those chants and whispers before, but this is like the first real, since he's been here, strong fire Cashman kind of push that you've seen from Yankee fans. And maybe I'll try to find the guy and have as a guest on a future episode, which would be kind of interesting. But yeah, so if you want to mark your calendars, and if you're just upset with the team, you want them to fire Brian Cashman, you want to show up. That's Friday, September 22nd. That's not something I would do. I just go to the game to go to the game. I'm not going to carry signs and put a bag on my head. This kind of looks stupid. I don't know if they even let you in the game with a bag on your head, because maybe you got sneak liquor and cigarettes under there. So probably not. And look, is Cashman get fired? I don't know. He has 3 years left on the deal. You're not going to pay a guy to sit on the couch for that. So could be some restructuring in the offseason where maybe, he's VP and in charge of GM, so maybe they just have him be a vice president overhead, and maybe someone else he hires a GM, and Hal says, look, you're going to keep your job, you're overall running baseball operations, but, you got to take yourself out of the situation, get another GM, get another fresh pair of eyes, get someone in player development, get a whole new staff, some new ideas, because unfortunately your ideas is not working lately, because this team that's kind of stuck in the mud. And what good is it going to do anyway? Because you look at next season, a lot of these same guys are going to be back. Stanton's still on the contract. DJ's on the contract. He's got 1 more year left to Rizzo. So, I don't know what other GM's going to come in and sprinkle magic dust on them to also let them turn back the clock for 5 years. So, a lot of stuff, bad stuff here. But again, if you want to attend and vent your frustration for Brian Cashman, that's September 22nd. I'm sure you get a ticket on StubHub or something. And if you're looking at a Yankee team that looks like, the postseason is just way too far of a stretch for them, you can hear some talk now that maybe it's just shutting down some of the Yankee pieces. Mainly would be Garrett Cole, because obviously he's your ace, and if everything's if you don't need him for the rest of the season, or at least don't need to push him as much, why risk hurt him, when you're going to need him for 2024? As of course, another name will be Carlos Rendon, who, again, has been battling all season to get on the field, and then even he gets on the field, he has to get right off. If he seems like he's been hurt, a little damaged goods, again, why risk anything? Just shut him down for the rest of the season. Hopefully he has a good off season, and then have him, again, healthy and strong, ready to go for spring training in April. And of course, last but not least, Aaron Judge, who has the torn ligament in his toes. Why have him go out there and possibly further injure himself or compromise another body part just because he's not, fully healthy with the toe ligament there? So it's a little interesting. I think I don't think the Yankees are just there yet. You still have way more than a month left of the season. I don't think they're going to go on this mystery hot streak of September that some of these Yankee players and Boone thinks they're going to go on. But nevertheless, I think it's a little too early to that point. And look, I know it's about the team. It's not about personal accolades. But again, Cole's having a really good season. I know he got beat up in that Boston game, but unfortunately, he hasn't had too many of those type of starts this season. And he should have much more wins. But the Yankee offense and the Yankee bullpen has blown games for him at times. And again, we look at other stats such as innings pitched, strikeouts, and so forth, opposing batting average stuff. He's up there in a lot of stats. So good chance he could win the Cy Young possibility. It'd kind of be like when Jacob deGrom was the Mets, where deGrom would have hardly any wins, but have great stats elsewhere and would get a Cy Young. So Cole might have one of those type of seasons. So I think if there's a window for Cole to get the Cy Young, just for himself, as long as he doesn't push himself and doesn't do anything too crazy, I think, I don't think the Yankees should pull the plug on his season and let him just pitch as much as he can into September. When you talk about a week or two left of the season, then maybe the Yankees go light and you'll see them, maybe, spot start a minor league or something like that. But for this point, I have no problem with Cole rolling along. Rendon, at least you can make more of a case because he's been injured a lot. It's been hard to get him on the field. But also as well, I just think for himself, it's kind of a lost season for him, but just on a personal level, as long as he's healthy and is not showing some signs, you would think he'd want to at least, end the season with some positivity going into next year, not just shut everything down and kind of have to restart. He's thrown hardly any innings this season, so you just want to talk in terms of arm strength and building up your arm strength. You could do your off-season throwing program, you have your spring training, but you want to get some real live action, get some live action there, get some Yankee experience on your arm there. So I have no problem with him, getting a couple more starts in September as long as he's healthy. And of course, with Aaron Judge, all right, maybe you could pull back him playing the outfield as much, but he's your guy, he's your team, he's the captain. You can't just have him sitting there on the bench with the rest of the month there where he's can technically play. Again, the doctors have said there's no way he could further injure his toe there. So if that's the case, I don't see any reason why Judge can't be on the field, even though it kind of looks like a losing effort overall, a fruitless effort. But I have no problem him be out there for the rest of the month. Again, when you have a week or two left of the season, or maybe then you could consider that at least for the pitchers. And then maybe if there's 3 games left of the regular season, okay, maybe you could just tell Judge to take a breather for that one and put a Greg Allen out there or something. So, saves you the dessert. Of course, the part that, introduced this season, the fan tweets. And again, this is from after the Sunday Boston game where the Yankees lost and got swept. And again, the Yankee Twitter account, or X now if you want to call it, put out the final score of 6-5 there, and of course you got fan reactions, hot and angry and heavy. So I figure read some of them and then kind of give my take and my feedback on that. So we're using the technology of the tablet, little upgrade from the Post-it there. So this first one, actually, I got to give credit. It's actually from Yankee Crazy Pod, Greg, who I've had on the show a couple times. He actually got the top comment there, so it was a good one. There was actually Boone holding a tray of cookies. So he starts off with hashtag Uncle Booney says, "It's okay, boys. Besides the 3-game sweep, I saw some super good things in batting practice. Now now it's right in front of us." So that's kind of what Boone's is sort of like always say, hey, we're about to turn around. Hey, I like the at-bats, but, the team's getting shut out there. So, but I have to give credit on Greg on that one for getting the top comment spot. Next one here up is they've got a AAA lineup at best. Well, yeah, that's kind of the problem. I mean, other than Judge and, of course, Gleyber has come on a little, come on as of the last month or so. The rest of the lineup is kind of blah, a lot of automatic outs, a lot of strikeouts, a lot of ground outs, and not much offense there. So, other than Judge, especially if Judge is not in the lineup, this team is pretty much a bore. That fire everyone. What a joke. You keep running players like McKinney, Bowers, and Rovette out there while you have kids at AAA who deserve a chance. Well, again, after that, a lot of tweets after the game, people were calling to bring up the young guns. And again, it looks like the Yankee brass finally listens to him. Again, having Pereira as well as Peraza coming up for the Yankees, and let's see if they add a spark. Probably not, but whatever. I don't know if the Yankees are making the playoffs. They're probably not. So I don't know if that was sarcastic or not, but anyway. This one was actually a bit of a longish thing, and now with X, there's no more characters, so you can really go off. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this person here has made some good comments. So, Judge is the only player on the team worth a damn. That's kind of true. He can't play every position or score every run. They should lose 75% of... They shouldn't lose 75% of the games just because Judge was on the IL. And that was true. I mean, even though Judge was out for a while, I meant the team should have been much better than that. They were basically, a few games under 500 with Judge. I mean, they were ending against inferior teams. So even without Judge, they should have fared much better, and they didn't. Nobody's worth the money athletes are getting, but if anyone was, it would be him. You can't honestly say with the payroll they have now that you couldn't name 10 players that you would drop before him. They need to clear house and build around Judge and Cole. And yeah, that's true. I mean, Judge can't play every position, but that being said, even though he was gone for a while, they should have done much better during that period, and they didn't. And again, they would like to get rid of everyone, but you can't. But you got a lot of players still on the contract. I'm more embarrassed by this team than if I crap myself in public. Now, the Yankees can make you feel embarrassed, and the person used a strong word than crap, but this is a family show, so I cleaned it up a little bit. I think Stanton is due, and I think that's a little more sarcasm there. I generally don't know if there's a baseball team I hate more than this one. And I can understand that because, you've had some Yankee teams that have, failed in the past, such as, or failed to make the playoffs like the 2013, 2014, but they weren't like this. They weren't dead. And you had some likable players like Ichiro there, and you saw Jeter around, and, even if they fall short, they didn't frustrate you, and they didn't swing and miss, and you have guys like Stanton, it's kind of like a statue hitting 200 there. So this team does kind of bother you a little bit. Bring up the whole minor league team. Well, that's not happening, but they at least brought up some of the pieces. It's right in front of us, kind of making fun of Boone always says that, yeah, it's right in front of us. We're in control of our own destiny. We just can't score any runs. Do yourself a favor and call up the kids, please. Yes, they've done that. They've answered the prayers with that one. Bring up the effing kids, give us a family show, so we're not going to say the F word. That's all we have to look forward to at this point. Well, yeah, and you like to see, Peraza, what he could actually do with a full-time playing job. They really haven't given him a full chance. He's kind of up and down, up and down. Had some good stats there in AAA when he could play full-time, so let's see what he could do. And this, I guess, I just came back on Twitter to say y'all trash. So this guy just dropped in to say the Yankees are trash. So a little grim for the Yankees, look like not going to make the postseason. So really at this point, you're just hoping that they could at least finish 500 or better, which again, right now, this is not looking good for this team, just the way they're playing right now. So we'll see how it goes along there. And of course, we see what's going to come up, with the offseason just around the corner. So make sure you keep watching those. There's going to be a lot of fireworks, and I'm sure, a lot of talk about fire Cashman, what moves they should make. So again, if you haven't done it, make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, and make sure you subscribe here, hit the bell, hit the button.